Welcome back to Life's Chillant. My name is Avital, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Chana, who is the founder and creator of the YouTube channel Jar of Fireflies, where she posts these wonderful videos about Jewish life. She talks about homeschooling her children, about cooking, about family, and just what it looks like to be a Jewish Orthodox family living in the US. And Chana's videos are so wonderful and so filled with joy and light, and I was so excited when she agreed to be a guest on my channel talking about her son's Upsherin, which is it's another Jewish life cycle event that marks a Jewish boy's third birthday when he receives his first haircut. So it's a very exciting event within the Jewish life cycle, and one that is not talked about as often as some of the bigger ones, such as maybe a wedding or a bar and bat mitzvah. It's one that often gets overlooked, and so I'm really excited to talk about it today. And I think the way that Chana speaks about the Upsherin is really easy to understand, and she really explains the elements so nicely, and so I think you are all really going to enjoy it, and I look forward to you seeing it. Welcome back to Life's Chillant. My name is Avital, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Chana, who founded the YouTube channel Jar of Fireflies. And she posts these awesome lifestyle videos about Judaism, homeschooling, cooking, and so much more. And it is such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. It is such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So you started your channel back in December of 2019, if I've got that correct.
Yes.
So what was your motivation to get started?
So there were a few things. There was the fact that I really love video editing and filming and that sort of thing. It's just like a really fun hobby, and I guess I needed another hobby. And then also you see the way that Jews are often portrayed on TV or on, Netflix or even just on YouTube. And there's just so much more to Judaism than that. And I wanted to kind of get in, I guess, my kind of Judaism, like an Orthodox Judaism that isn't, wearing all black or, living in New York. Like there's plenty of kinds of Jews all over the world. So just to give people a chance to see another kind.
Absolutely. I think you do an awesome job of that. You show all of the color and all of the beauty that our religion has to offer. And I think it's such an important mission. So I'm glad you're doing it.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun.
So today, I have you joined here specifically to talk about something that just happened with your 3-year-old son, which was that he had his Upsherin.
Yes.
So I'm going to use the words Upsherin or halakha interchangeably, but
we use it interchangeably in our house too.
So what is a Upsherin for those who might not be familiar with the tradition?
So it's something that not every Jew does. It's not even something that every Orthodox Jew does, but it is a tradition of waiting until a little boy is 3 years old before he cuts his hair at all. So when they turn 3, the little boy will get his first haircut.
That's so cool. And I should mention also that you posted a great video about it on your channel, Jar of Fireflies. So you should definitely go check that out, and I'll link it in the description. But why 3 years old? Do you have any sense as to why not 2, why not 5? What happens around the time that the boy is 3 that maybe would lead this tradition to happen then?
So I didn't know that either. So when I was getting ready for my video, when I was getting ready to cut my son's hair, I asked myself the same question. And what I was able to find out online was it has to do with at 3, the boys are entering the kind of, I guess, formal Jewish education system. At that point is when they start formal Jewish learning. For us, it's at home. For many people, it's at home. For other people, it may be at a preschool or some kind of Jewish day school. Usually the preschools are attached to that. But it's associated with that. So then when you have this little boy with his little boy haircut, and then he gets his big boy haircut, it's this physical change that the little boy understands and knows that, like, now I'm a big boy, now I can, learn Torah and kind of have that different focus and maturity even at 3. And I've noticed it in my son. It's pretty fantastic. Like, this change about him. He even told me, he's like, I'm not a baby anymore. I'm a big boy. He knows.
That's so cool. That's so cool to see that kind of tangible change in a child and how they start to grow and mature. So what are some of the other traditions that go along with this haircut in the sense of it's not only about the haircut, but about, so you said, sort of starting this formal Jewish learning. What are some of these other ideas or aspects that are tied into this 3-year-old birthday?
So it's also when the little boys will start wearing tzitzit
Mhm.
and kippah.
Very cool. Um, and then back on the haircut for a moment. So let's talk a little bit more about this ceremony in the sense of, does it have to be a rabbi who's cutting the hair? Who does cut the hair? Is there a specific order around the hair cutting? Sort of all of those different elements.
So as far as I can tell, no, there's no special blessing. It doesn't matter who cuts the little boy's hair. Traditionally, you will have many people cut a lock of hair. And so by the end of it, the little boy's hair is quite interesting looking. And then they go off and get a real haircut after. Um, when we did my older sons, this was before the pandemic. And so it was kind of a big party, and we had, we let all of the rabbis cut the hair after my husband started. And then we just had, people in our community were cutting his hair. So kind of everybody was getting a little chance to go in there and take a little snip of hair. When we were doing this one just recently, of course, it was during the pandemic. So my husband started it. We had his family in on Zoom because they all live in Israel and in the New York area. So he was kind of like, this one's for you. And he'd snip a little bit and this one's for you. So he was kind of like cutting the hair by proxy. And then I cut a little bit, and each of our kids got a chance also to cut. So.
Oh, that's very special. Yeah. Well, I've attended some Upsherins in the past, and it is quite fun because all of the guests will come and they'll each get to cut a bit of hair, and it makes for a really fun atmosphere and everybody's sort of partaking in the celebration.
Yeah. It's a really fun one where everyone gets to participate.
Yeah, I do like the Zoom idea, but do you have any sense as to, do girls have a similar tradition? Is it just for boys? Do you know anything more about that?
So it really is just for boys, because boys have the mitzvah of wearing the kippah, of wearing the tzitzit. Girls don't have that requirement. It's not something that we do. So there's no reason to start. And so girls, you can cut their hair anytime, and it's just something that doesn't really apply to them.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it. They don't have those same traditional commandments, and also I think maybe it has to do something with the payas that boys have to keep, like their sideburns, and girls don't have to. So
yes,
that's definitely something there.
Yeah.
For you, I know you mentioned that your son actually went through some changes of maturing throughout this experience, but what type of meaning does it have for you and for your husband and for your family?
So for me as a mom, I was like, oh, I don't have any more little bitty children anymore. Because that long hair on the little boy, it's kind of like, no, he's still a little boy. Look at him. And, now I feel like I have all these big kids, even though he's only 3, my youngest. So he's not such a big kid, but it feels like he's this bigger kid. And now the whole family is kind of getting in on reminding him to wear his kippah, because of course being 3, it's not staying on all day. And, so we're always, my daughter who's 5 loves to run around and be like, you should wear your kippah, So yeah, it's just, it feels like sort of a little shift in the family. Like we don't have these little babies anymore. The kids they're all bigger.
Well, it's sweet that's what sisters are for,
Yeah.
to be the ones there. I've got a brother, so to be there
Yeah.
reminding him what to do.
Yeah.
Oh, and something else in your video that was so precious was that you had this olive base, the Hebrew alphabet chart that you gave to your son, and you had put M&Ms on it where maybe traditionally it's honey. Could you
Yes.
talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, so it is tradition to put honey on the letters, and then the little boy can either lick it off or use his finger, like as he'll go through. Sometimes the little boy will go through and say the aleph bet while he's pointing at all the letters. And the honey has to do with the sweetness of Torah, like he's sort of getting the sweetness of Torah while he's doing this. My son was not having anything to do with the honey, so we put M&Ms down, and he thought that was the greatest thing ever. So yeah, it's about the sweetness of Torah.
Oh, I love that idea. I'm glad that you found something that was still sweet that he could enjoy and appreciate too.
Yes, I know he loves M&Ms.
Who doesn't?
Right.
Another thing, so you mentioned at the very beginning that it's not a tradition that everybody does. So if somebody's sort of on the fence about if they want to do it or if they don't want to do it, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I think anybody can do it. I don't think that you need to rely on a family tradition or anything like that. I think most people do, people that I've talked to, because even in my Orthodox community, like one of the rabbis, he didn't do it with his son. And I was, I was a little surprised because I just thought it was something religious people did. But he's like, no, it's just not my family's tradition to do that. So they didn't. And then I know other people who became religious later in life, or who were maybe just sort of becoming religious or wherever they were. And they were like, I think that's such a neat tradition. I'm going to do that with my sons. So I don't think there's any problem to adopt the custom if it's not something you've ever done, or if it's just not something your family does, to just not do it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's definitely not a requirement or anything like that.
Is there anything else that you want to add that I missed on the tradition? You just did it, so you know definitely more about what went into it. Are there any aspects that I'm missing or that I should have touched on that I haven't gotten to yet?
Well, I guess I would just add that I talked a little bit about my older sons that we did before the pandemic and how it was kind of a big party. And I think before the pandemic, it was not at all uncommon to have a big party for it where you invite a lot of people and everybody's participating. There's kids everywhere and, lots of candy and things like that. And now obviously that's a little bit different with the pandemic. Things are much smaller. Some people are doing them now as like those kind of like we live in a suburban area. So kind of like as a drive-by situation where people will drive by and like wave and say Mazal Tov while they're cutting the hair. But you can make it however you want. It can be a really big deal, or it can be something quiet at home. And it's seen it across the board by this point.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that people can choose to do it however they want and choose to mark this great occasion, whatever way is most comfortable for them. So thank you so much, Chana, again for joining us. I encourage everybody to check out her YouTube channel, Jar of Fireflies, and to subscribe, and to also follow her on Instagram at jar_of_fireflies. I will leave all that information in the description below in case you didn't catch what I was saying. But thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having me.